Good afternoon or morning if you're in Hawaii, everybody. It is Craig Reger. I'm co-founder of Reger Coaching and Consulting. I'm here with our co-founder, Mr. Josh Cooley, based in Eugene, Oregon, and our special guest today, Mr. Chris Heller, Chief Real Estate Officer at Ojo Labs. Thank you so much for joining us today, Chris.
Hey, my pleasure, always.
Normally when we have these webinars, Chris, we're we've got an agenda, like here's a database guru, and we're going to walk you through step by step how to build your database and how to communicate with them and what to do next. And for today, it's a little bit more free roll when we've got Chris Heller on board, previous CEO of Keller Williams International, still running one of the top teams in the country out of San Diego, even though you spend most of your time in either Austin or Montana, and what you're doing at Ojo and other tech companies. So, our goal today is really just pick your brain on what's going on, what you're thinking, and what you're seeing in the real estate market. Josh, you want to kick it off?
Let's go.
I was all prepared to talk about database and tags and tasks and campaigns. So now you're throwing a curveball. Okay, no, just joking. All right, yes, let's kick it off.
Yeah, let's go bigger picture. And speaking of that, Inman, New York was last week. I know you both were there. I'm still getting the download from Mr. Reger, but Chris, what did you take away from Inman? What can you share?
I always look at it through a couple of different lenses. As an agent, and then as an industry exec and advisor to a lot of companies. There's a lot of companies on the technology side that are in trouble, and there are a lot of them there that were in trouble. And so the tone was a little more subdued. At the same time, the more companies are in trouble, the more opportunities there are, and the more change will happen in, mergers, acquisitions, consolidation. So that's all, for me, that's all super exciting. From an agent perspective, the agents that were there not to figure out how to survive. They're there to figure out how to take advantage of the market and come out even stronger on the other side. And that was really evident by the conversations that were going on.
I totally agree. I'd venture to guess that maybe 40-50% of the attendees were not agents. It was executives and tech companies and vendors. So the agents that went were plugging in a really big level for Amory and I, Josh. Like, Amory's my wife. It was our first business trip together in 4 to 5 years. So it was really cool to be at Inman, really cool to be in New York. And our takeaway was just the level of thinking.
You're supposed to say it was really cool to be together too.
That was the best part. It was like we had a blast, some great dinners. We saw a show, but from the actual convention standpoint, it's just the level of thinking. And yeah, there's a lot of tech companies in trouble. There's a lot of agents in trouble.
Yeah.
And still the thinking was, it wasn't like, how do I close another 100 homes, which is normally what realtors are seeking from a convention. And it's just a bigger level of thinking, of hanging out with people like you. And it's like, how do I build this company to $100 million company? Or how do I create this component and bolt it into this company so it's worth 25 million? And to me, just being in that room with that level of thinking, it's not something you see at other conventions. And to me, that's what made Inman really special.
Yeah, it is. It's a unique conference, right? It's not the typical real estate conference where it's, scripts and tactics and techniques and trends. All of that exists there, and you can certainly get that. But there's a whole, as you said, Craig, there's a whole nother level of conversations that happen, and it's one of the places where you can speak with and hear speaking, a lot of the leaders in our industry, right? The CEOs of some of the largest companies, are there, where you're able to hear what they're saying, hear what they're not saying, hear what they're saying without really saying it, and then, be able to bump into them all over the place and have conversations.
Yeah, 100%. Maybe my second takeaway is agents, get back out. Like with COVID for so long, we couldn't get out. And we are in a challenging market, and go and get some energy infused, go to conferences, network, socialize, get that knowledge, because you're going to come back excited, not about, the sale fail you had yesterday, or the negativity of a couple of buyers that backed out because of rates or whatever else. Like it brings you back at a different level to re-engage into your business. Well, let's switch gears to a great book. I think I know the author of this book. Mr. Heller. One of the things that really spoke to me, I've read the book like 3 times now, Chris, but it's in the first couple of chapters, like law of attraction. And a lot of that we saw at the conference with the people we bumped into and what happened, and maybe just law of attraction or anything else, some dominant thoughts. What do you have to share with us?
Yeah, it's that, the subtitle of the book is, things grow where your minds go. And, what we focus on expands. Like we've heard lots of versions of that. And it's true. And it works in both directions, right? The agents that are focused on how bad it is, how tough it is, the teams that are focused on how much money they lost in December or any of those things, are not only not moving forward, but probably falling backwards even at a faster pace. So, it's super important, mindset. I think it's the single most important thing that we can use in our favor. And if we don't, we're likely to use it against ourselves. And it's one of the few things that we have total control over. Now, most of us don't operate that way, and most of us don't realize that, but we do. And so it's that, using your mind and your mindset and your attitude and your approach and your expectations to, look at what's going on objectively always, but also say, okay, where are the opportunities and what am I going to do to not just be at the effect of what's going on, but to actually affect what's going on.
That's awesome. What piece of advice, you shared the tech companies, many are in trouble, and that creates opportunity. The market people may view as being in trouble, but I really focus on the opportunity of the market that didn't exist 6 or 7 months from now. But regardless of the market, if somebody is sitting here at literally the last day of January and their mindset is a little bit negative, like, wow, last year I sold all these houses and then Q3 and 4 was challenging and in January I haven't got much better. What are some techniques or ideas that you would bring to the table to help them change that mindset, to have a better law of attraction rather than a negative law of attraction?
Yeah, so one of the most important things to do is to make sure that we're doing the activities, right? Yes, there's the things we think about, but more than anything, we have to get in the habit of just doing the activities, doing them with more urgency and at a higher rate than we were before. And if we weren't doing them before, this is the time to do them. That movement helps get in a better mindset, helps you have a better attitude, right? Even if you're making baby steps forward, it's easier to feel good about that versus standing still or putting your head in the sand. So activities are key. Like, are we spending 80% of our time, like really going back to the basics, are we spending 80% of our time on revenue generating activities? Excuse me. And if we're not, what do we need to change in our schedule so that we can do that? What do we need to delegate? What do we need to cut out? What do we need to add in so that we can be spending a bulk of our time on revenue generating activities? Because momentum builds and momentum creates more momentum. And we want to make sure we're doing that in the right direction. So activities is one. The other is, what are we doing to give ourselves the strongest mindset and the best attitude so it makes it easier to do these things? Look, when you're in a good mood, when you have a good attitude, when you have a strong mindset, it's easier to do stuff. It's easier to do, especially the stuff that we don't maybe love doing or even want to do. But your mindset will cause you to do those things even when you don't. And so how can we eliminate the negativity? How can we eliminate the stuff that brings us down or drags us down or weighs us down? Paying attention to what we listen to, who we spend time with, what we watch, who we talk to, and at the same time, over-indexing on making sure that we are pouring in a ton more positive people that we hang out with, conversations that we have, what we read, what we listen to. You want to be able to operate at an optimal level, and it's much easier to do that if you have the right mindset.
That's awesome. You created a little trick for that you shared with me. I believe in Seattle or someplace else. Revenue activities 80% is often the things that could come with some pain. We don't want to do them. So what is it that Chris does when hey, this is the 80% activity that generates revenue for me, my company, and there's a piece of you, probably a large piece of times, that does not want to do it. What do you do? What's your system?
You know what, I just created, so I put a lot of structures in place, for example, getting up early, like, alarm clock in the bathroom, multiple alarm clocks, right? So there's no snooze and laying there or anything else. It's like alarm goes off, I'm up. But also, triggers that I'll use, such as, so one of them in the one you're referring to is, not listening to my wants and don't wants. So, might be, working out this morning or riding the Peloton. Man, I don't want to do this today. I don't feel like I don't feel like doing it. And then quickly, catching myself, I don't listen to my wants. I don't listen to my don't wants. I want to go to the beach today. I want to play golf today. I don't want to make calls today. Putting those thoughts as quickly as they come in out of your mind and saying, that's not what I do. And then focus on doing the thing. It's funny. I came across, might have been this morning or last night, a quick video. Oh my gosh, my brain. I'll think of who it was in a second, but he was talking about cold plunges and doing cold plunges and hates doing them. But as soon as he has that negotiation begins in his brain, he says, I don't negotiate. This is a non-negotiable. I don't negotiate this. I'll do the same thing. I mean, I'll, between the bed and the alarm clock, there could be several negotiations are going on, but it doesn't change ultimately what I do. Like, I don't go back to bed. I don't not work out. I don't do those things because I know if I do those things, I'm going to already have a foundation for a great day. And if I don't do those things, they're going to be weighing on me all day long. And I'm not willing to operate that way.
It's awesome. I think that's worth the price of admission, is the alarm clock in the bathroom. You got to really make a conscious decision to get your butt out of bed, turn it off, and then go back into bed.
Yeah. And you got to make sure your spouse is okay with being woken up that way too. But luckily mine is understanding of all my crazy idiosyncrasies. What
do you got, Josh? What do you want to know from Chris?
I wrote down the proof is there. So Chris, we know for years, I won't say decades, but maybe pushing it, you've had this mindset of just doing it and getting it done. And it used to be a story of these are the best practices, these are the activities, right? And now we have about 50,000 referral services in our country, giving agents leads that are doing these same activities the agents won't do. And I think it's hurting more than ever right now to get a referral from a service that's already in your Zillow or your Commission Sync or your Boomtown, right? Keep going. I mean, the proof is there that what we've been saying and to do is there, but people won't.
Yeah, and look, some people, like when I was young, I used to go to conferences or things, or read things or hear things, and I used to get angry. I'd get angry because everyone was hearing the same thing I was hearing. I was like, oh my God, all the agents are going to be doing what I'm doing. They're going to take the same ideas and implement. And then I'd go back to my office and realize that no one was doing them. They all heard them. They all took notes, but they never actually did the stuff. And that's the thing that separates the great from everyone else, or the ones that actually are going to do the things. And if we don't do them, someone else is going to. If you're not going to call the people in your database, someone else is, and someone else is anyways. But you have the opportunity to be the one that builds that relationship with them. So look, if we're just not going to do it, then we got to figure out a hack for it, right? We either got to say, all right, we're gonna pay this company to do it, or I'm gonna pay someone else to do it, or I'm gonna do this instead of that, and I'm gonna get results, this way. And there's many ways of succeeding in this business, but to have that mental tug of war every day just doesn't make sense.
It's exhausting.
It's brain damage.
Yeah.
And what's so ironic to me is that we have a hard industry. Like agents, all three of us are agents. We've sold thousands of homes, and let's call it like it is. It's a hard industry. Like, it's exhausting. It's long hours. It can be evenings, weekends, and holidays, and everything in between. And the part that's most ironic to me as a coach is the people that are willing to not negotiate their wants and their don't wants, to actually do the activities. They have the best quality of life. Like we get dragged into or put ourselves in a position where we're working with unmotivated people that don't take our advice. And 7 months ago, when we said you have to come in 100 over asking, they came in 20 over asking. Or in today's market, we're saying you can come in 25 under asking, and they want to come in 200 under asking. And it's just brain damage. And the reason is, Chris, right? We all know this. It's because they only have that one client and are hoping and praying this will be the one. But the ones that are willing to do the activities that you were just talking about, that 80%, then they've got an abundance of clients, and then they typically just work with the motivated people that treat them well, where there's a mutual level of respect, and their life actually becomes so much simpler, and their revenue goes up exponentially.
Yeah, it's it really plays into that thought of, you know, of momentum, right? Momentum builds in either direction, and there's in most businesses, and certainly in ours, there's no status quo. You know, you're either moving forwards or backwards, and you know, doing the things that you were just saying, Greg, are the things that help you move forward. And you got to be willing. You know, people don't like to say that. I had dinner last night with 3 22, 23-year-olds, and one was my daughter, and it was her birthday was last week. I was in New York, so we were celebrating last night, and they all have their first jobs. They all just graduated college, and they're all on their first jobs. And I was asking one of them something, I forget the exact question, but she said, yeah, the first day that I had to work 8 hours in the office, I was exhausted. And I was like, and the others were like, yeah. And I was like, who works 8 hours? Like eight hours is like by lunchtime. Like what, like, but that was their mentality. Like, oh no, 8 hours that's like a lot, and that's all we do. And why would we work more than that? And, you know, and there's a lot of people, and I won't stereotype, so I won't say they're a certain age group or not. But I think anyway, I'm not gonna say it. But you have to be willing to do what it takes. It doesn't mean you have to do what it takes all the time, but you have to have that willingness. You know, so you know, if you haven't achieved your daily goals or accomplished the things you want to accomplish that day, hey, just because it's 5 o'clock doesn't mean you check out and go, oh, I'll try to make up for it tomorrow. No, you get it done. And if you're not getting the things done you need to get done by the time the day ends, then figure out what you need to change in your day so that you can do that. Whether it's waking up earlier, whether it's being more efficient with your activities or more effective with your activities. You know, it's not just about how many hours we work, but, you know, how many hours can we work efficiently and effectively? So yeah, it's the activities and doing the things, and in all, you know, in sports and business, anywhere, look at the ones that put in the time, that practice the most, that work on their skills at the highest level, that develop those skills, are the ones that achieve at the highest level. And then it's asking ourselves honestly, you know, are we willing to do that? Are we willing to do what it takes? Are we willing to do what it takes to be one of the best, or to be the best that I can be? And I truly believe that most people want that, but they get stuck somewhere between that want and then actually accomplishing those things.
There's a saying behind that. I probably won't nail it. My wife just sent it out to we have a brokerage here as well. We're a coaching company. We have a brokerage down the street. My wife sent it to our sales agents, and it was, be willing to do what others won't, so tomorrow you can have what others can't. You've been a shining example of that for, as Josh said, decades, Chris. Can we
four decades.
What's that?
I got my license in 1983, so that's 40 years ago.
And didn't you climb like kind of a big mountain like 10 days ago?
It was I don't even know what day of the month this is. It was about 3 weeks ago. Yeah, we climbed Kilimanjaro in December. Actually, on Christmas Eve we summited.
So I'm not going to do the math on that, but you've had your real estate license for 40 years and you climbed a mountain 14 days ago, one of the biggest in the world. Yeah, that's discipline.
Yeah, and it was, and I'll tell you what, physically and mentally, it was probably, it may have been the hardest thing I've ever done, physically and mentally. You know, mindset. The amount of affirmations and mantras that I used were in the hundreds on some days.
Yeah, you were telling me at the end, you were barely even walking. Like they instructed you to just basically.
Yeah, you're at that altitude. You can't. You have to keep your heart rate down, or you just get winded instantly. So you're moving very slowly and very methodically, but for long periods of time, right? It was like the summit was 7.5 hours, leaving at midnight and getting up there like 7:30 in the morning. But, it was, and I used a lot of the things I've used in business like that on that summit. After that was the 7th day of the hike. I kept in my head, it's like, the higher we go, the better I feel. The harder it gets, the stronger I get. It's like that over and over and over again. And pretty soon your body doesn't know the difference. It just knows what you're telling it. So we gotta be super mindful of what we're saying to ourselves.
And on what we're saying with ourselves and doing what it takes, Chris, some of the most enjoyable conversations I've had with you is based around money, right? Doing what it takes, your philosophy around money, your self-control. And right, you're in Texas. And I joke when we're coaching our Texas realtors that it's big hat, no cattle. And then for the rest of the nation, it's shiny BMW, no money. Right. There's a lot of people in our industry that have stood on a lot of stages boasting about how many units they've sold. And you and I know that when you pull the curtain back, there's financial pain, especially in a shifting market. So how have you controlled money and thought process around it?
Yeah, I've always one of the things that I did early on to accomplish the goals I want to accomplish in this business was develop really strong discipline when it came to a schedule, following my schedule, doing the activities. And then I discovered, okay, the more disciplined I was with my time and my schedule, the more time I actually had. And that applied to everything else. The more disciplined I was with my money, the more money I had. The more disciplined I was with my health, the better health I had. So when it came to money, I had some very specific things. When I was young, and that's actually, it's one of the books that not only caused me to write the book I wrote, but in the fashion that I wrote it in, was The Richest Man in Babylon. And in that book, one of the chapters, they talked about taking 10% of everything you make and putting it into an account that you never touch for savings. And I read that book in my 20s and I said, all right, I'm just going to do 15%. So I'll get there even quicker. And every commission check I ever got, 15%. And sometimes I'd have the escrow company cut 2 checks when they would do it. And if not, my bookkeeper would cut a check. I always made sure that I paid myself that 15% first. When I had a bookkeeper, there were months where she said, hey, Chris, there's not enough money to do the 15%. You got these medical bills, these orthodontist bills. And I'd say, hey, on the bottom of that doctor bill, what does it say? 0 to 30, 30 to 60, 60 to 90. She go, that's 0 to 30. Don't pay that one this month. Pay my 15% into the account and we'll take care of that doctor bill next month. And so I got really disciplined about that. And that allowed me to accumulate money then to when there were opportunities to take advantage of. I had the wherewithal to take advantage of those opportunities. And then the other thing was just, living below your means. For a long time, I drove a car that I was actually embarrassed about. When I was around other people, like when I was driving it, I was fine, didn't care. But I was actually, here's a story I don't think I've ever told. I had dinner with my mentor in San Diego, and we had dinner, came out, got the valets. My car pulled up first, and it's not a bad car. It was the Nissan Maxima. And I was doing really well in driving this Nissan Maxima. And then his car pulled up, which was a Rolls Royce. And I was embarrassed. I was just embarrassed that I know what he was driving. I knew what I was driving. And so I went out next week and bought, although I bought it from an auction, I bought a used BMW, but it was more substantial car. But I always had the attitude, rather than spending a bunch of money on a nice car, I'd rather buy another property, right? If I had the money to do either, I'm buying another property. And those are the things that, when you do those when you're younger, as you get older, the accumulation effect is significant. And I know, because I've lived that.
That discipline with your bookkeeper to pay yourself the 15% prior to the orthodontist, thinking through that, the pressure in a good way that must put on you, like you're not going to not pay the doctor that just gave your kids braces, right? So the pressure that put on you to get up the next morning and do the right activities to make that income to square up with that orthodontist must have been great.
Yeah, and I always knew, look, I knew I wasn't not going to do the activities, so I wasn't worried. Like I was confident that, yeah, we'll pay the bill next month. And sure, the doctor probably rather have gotten paid a month earlier, but Yeah, in my mind, they put those timeframes on the bottom of the bills for a reason. So,
So
and so, but it was more importantly though was making sure that I did what I said I was going to do, which is to take that 15% and sock it away, so that so there would be the ability to take care of opportunities when they came up.
really cool. We've got a few minutes left. If anybody has questions, please type them in directly for Chris. We'd love to get those answered. And then I want to do something fun with the book, Chris. So as we wrap up today in about 5 minutes, if we have the first 10 that give us their ahas from today, I'll send you a copy of Chris's book out in the mail tomorrow morning. How does that sound?
That's awesome.
And then my one ask is that you go on Amazon after you get the book and you enjoy it, which you will. You go on Amazon and give Chris a great review. Would that be all right, Chris?
That would be awesome. And thank you for thinking of that and asking for it, because I probably wouldn't have asked.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Bella, let us know if any questions come up. And as we're wrapping up, I guess my final question is just leadership. And I realize we could do a 5-day seminar on lessons of leadership. But if you had to sort it down to one that you want to share with today's audience, what's a lesson in leadership, or at least a piece of advice you'd give to us who are working on upping our leadership?
That's something that I had to be really purposeful about at a certain stage. I really knew that I had to up my leadership and then figure out how to do it. So I started reading a lot of books, and then I just started watching. Right, there's in fact, it's a quote that I said, and someone made a little meme for me. But it's leadership lessons are all around us. It's whether we're paying attention to them or not to catch them. Look at walking the talk. Right? Don't ask anyone to do something you're not willing to do or that you're not already doing. You have to be the shining example. People pay more attention to what you do and how you do it than they do to what you say. And so as leaders or aspiring leaders, we want to set those examples. The other thing is always be looking at, what's best, not for you, but for the person that you're interacting with. If you always are thinking that way, good things will happen. Good things will come along. I had a call earlier today with a company that wanted to get my advice on a bunch of stuff. And they kept saying, we know we're really imposing on you. And I said, look, I'm always happy to help. I believe in what comes around goes around. I've done things, and 10 years later, good things have happened because of it. So I'm always willing to make a deposit in the karma bank. But as leaders and people that want to be leaders, we have to make sure that we're only as good as the people around us. And one of the ways that we get measured as leaders are the people that we're leading succeeding at a high level. And if not, then we have to look in the mirror and say, okay, what are we doing or not doing that we need to?
It's awesome, Chris. Thank you. We had a question pop up as we wrap up, and it was, which I've never asked you. I'd love to know, Chris, what is your why?
It's been the same for a long time, and it's freedom. Me not being able to do something I want to do, or being told I can't do something, or not having the resources to do something is a horrible feeling. Makes my skin crawl, and that's more important to me than just about anything. So to be able to have the freedom to do what I want, when I want, with whom I want. Do I have total freedom, financial freedom? No, I'm not a multi-billionaire, and I can't do that. But I'm always working towards, making sure that I'm not constrained from the things I really want to be doing.
Freedom's a hell of an answer. All right, well, let's wrap it. So we are a coaching company. Chris, you've been a tremendous advocate and supporter of the company. So we've got one-on-one coaching, we've got group coaching. We're having an absolute blast right now, helping agents with conversion coaching of leads, whether that's Zillow or Sync or Ylopo or Boomtown. So anybody that likes what we're doing, you can scan the QR code on the left for our conversion coaching, or the one on the right for our traditional one-on-one coaching. Chris, Josh, and I both coach with a coach you recommended us to. I know you are a coach and have had multiple coaches for your whole life. Like, what's your philosophy on coaches or coaching?
Yeah, it is the single best investment I've made in my career. And I never looked at it as an expense, because it paid dividends far beyond the cost of it. So we're only going to be able to go so far on our own. And there's no Olympic athlete, professional athlete, super successful executive who doesn't have or hasn't had a coach or multiple coaches. And I've had one consistently since the first time I heard you could hire one, which was 1996. And I have one today. So strong advocate and believer, and especially what you guys do. In fact, I had a call with a broker in Florida this morning, and he asked me about coaching. I said, you know what, here's who I'd recommend for you. I said, the message that they deliver, the way they approach it, their philosophy is so in line with the way I think things should be. So it was a free plug you got this morning to somebody.
We'll take it, Chris. Thank you. Thank you for being on today. Thank you for sharing your experience and your wisdom. Josh Cooley, as always, a pleasure to see you. And I get to see you in person on Friday, so I'm excited about that. Sure. And yeah, thanks everyone. Let's make 2023 productive. We are one. Chris, you said you didn't know what day it is. It's January 31st, buddy. It is go time. We have 11 months left in this year. Let's make the best of it, which I know you certainly are.
Absolutely.
Thanks everyone. Take care.